we go. Now, immediately when I start to type, we're going to start seeing options appear. This is SQL Prompt at work. You've immediately seen a screen showing you, do you want to do save? Do you want to do select? Now I can start scrolling down through these lists and try to find things that I'm interested in. But better still, I'm just going to keep typing until I come to the thing I want, which is SSF. Now SSF is one of the first and most used, I use this every single day, all the time. It is this code snippet, is one of our first code snippets. SSF, and I hit the space bar. That instantly typed for me, select star from. Now that's our very first, simplest, clearest mechanism showing you the ways we can speed things up. Because T-SQL's actually got a little, kind of an odd approach to the way you have to write things. You can start writing, I'm going to select, let's see, business entity ID. Never type in demos. Right now, that's a column in a table. Which table is it in? I don't know. Let's see if we can find one that has that table. We could, look from business entity, say. Now, that's another things that are helping me do stuff. You'll notice it's prompting me as it goes along, but I'm not trying to get to that. The main thing I want to get to is we're going to roll back here and start again. Typing that column name was a pain, and you'll notice that the capitalization, there's no camel case to the capitalization. There's no ownership on the object itself. It's actually, at this point, somewhat unclear T-SQL. Now, if we go back to SSF, let's say we want to use the same table again. So we're going to use business entity, and you'll notice that it's prompting right there for business entity, and I can hit enter, or I can hit space, and there's other commands. We'll talk about some of the modifications you can make. But it's now selected that table. It's now put in an alias for me, and I can then join two other tables inside my system. The beautiful thing is, like, let's say we want to join to person. I can go down here, even though I'm typing things, I can go down here and I can see what's occurring. I can see the table, and is this the table I really want? Whoops, move that up a little bit. Let's move it back down. Is this the table I really want? Well, I can go over here and I can scroll through the columns. I can decide, oh yes, business entity, person, yeah, that's the business entity ID, joins those two together. And look, there's my person first name, person last name. That's the stuff I want. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and select the person table. I can use my mouse and double click on that. I'm not going to do mouses today. We're going to do keyboards. But there it is, join person.person as. There we go. Now, any join obviously has to have an on clause. We will prompt you. We will look at the tables. We will explore the foreign key constraints on those tables, and we will let you know that, hey, we recognize that there is a foreign key constraint between business entity ID and business entity ID. There are also matching column names. You'll notice there's a little icon over here that shows a little key, and that little key is an indication that this is a foreign key constraint. These are potential keys because they're just the same names and same data types. Those are probably not the ones we want to use. We're going to use this one. And so now it's put in my join criteria. Completely done, completely ready to go. Now I can keep going, adding more tables to this join and everything as we go along. I'm just going to hit enter here so you can see what's going on. We're going to now hit a where clause. Notice it's prompting me for that. Hit the space bar. It obviously fills it right in. Now it's already prompting me using the aliases. You'll notice the BE and the P are available right there. We've already got the aliases for the tables that we've previously created. Let me just highlight those so you can see them. Right here, BE and P. So BE dot, hey, look at that. I can put in the columns off the fly. Well, it's what P dot. What if we said where, I don't know, we're going to make stuff up as we go along, where title equals president. Now, another thing I'd like you to point out, as I typed in that first quote mark, it immediately put in a second for me and moved the cursor inside the quote marks. This is also another way that this makes me so much faster at typing. Now, I'm explaining all this as I go along, so actually typing this out has been really slow, right? Let's do this. What did we use? We used title, right? Now, oops, typos, never type in demos. Now, I would like anyone to try to type that T-SQL in the speed it took me to type that T-SQL. And I mean for you to include the aliases, the joins, the join criteria, and all of that. And I was not trying to go fast. I was just using the tool. So you saw the speed at which I was able to deliver all of this stuff. Now, there's more, a lot more that keeps going. Let's take a look up here. You'll notice there's a little tooltip popped up right in front of us. It says press tab to expand wildcard. Well, let's do it. That just took every single row, every single column in both tables and inserted it into my code for me directly, immediately, just by pressing that tab at that start point. Because obviously we don't want to do select star. We do want to use column names. That's an appropriate T-SQL approach. But what we're focusing on is the speed of delivery, the speed at which you can do your T-SQL coding. That's the focus here. And the increased accuracy, because you'll notice that, remember before when I typed out business entity ID as a column before I selected tables, before I did anything else, the camel casing was off. But now I've got the exact same camel casing that's stored within the table. So I've got a dead-on accuracy for my system. This will show exactly the way the code is laid out, exactly the way the structures are laid out. So I've got that increased accuracy. I've got that increased clarity along with increased speed. Now let's just take a look at some more T-SQL assistance, because this is, I'm just going to delete everything. So fine, it works, it does, it does select statements. Awesome. Select statements are good. We like select statements. What about, I don't know, backup, database? Pick the database that we're interested in by scrolling or by typing. Typing's better, right? We want to use the keyboard to do this work for us. Backup database to disk equals, notice the prompting again for the quote marks. Everything's laid out for you. So I can do C colon, backslash, data backslash, my backup, dot back. And with, I've got the full T-SQL command structure, and it's the appropriate T-SQL command structure for the commands you're working within. The tool recognizes the code that you're writing, and the tool will prompt you with appropriate statements along the way. So it is not simply helping you type T-SQL, it's helping you write your T-SQL in an appropriate fashion so that you're getting a higher accuracy on the code that you're writing as you're writing it. And you will get, better performance because your code's going to work the first time. You're not going to have to, oh gosh, I've got a typo, go back and fix the typo. Oh gosh, I've got another typo, let me find this other typo. Because as we all know, T-SQL will only report a single error at a time. You will see one error at a time over and over again, and you'll have to go back and find the next typo that you made in the next. And once you eliminate all the typos as you're typing, the speed that you're doing your T-SQL is going to be radically improved. All right, from here, let's go back to the slides. Make sure you guys are seeing them. There we go. Oh, we just did the demo. All right. So I got a little ahead of ourselves. It is important to have knowledge of the language. It's not simply a question of, writing better code. In fact, the prompting would be very difficult if it didn't recognize where you were at within the code. But knowledge of that language is a huge improvement on your T-SQL. Also, knowledge of the database is a huge improvement on your T-SQL. And you'll notice that we've automated best practices. We've made it so that you're going to see your joins. You're going to see the stuff going in. The on clauses are prompted. All of these are best practices, and they're prompted from within the tool. So you're going to get exactly the kind of stuff that you need to see. Now we're going to go ahead and skip this demo. I've actually hang on. No, we'll throw a couple more in there. I've got a couple more ideas we can do for a demo. Why not? Let's switch back over. Okay, the mouse is going to be in the wrong spot. We'll fix that. Just trying to keep it zoomed in so you guys can see everything. Right, so what if, so we've done a backup database. You guys have seen a select statement. What other types of stuff can you do? Well, obviously we may need to create a table. Look at that. It's prompting me for the object owner. This thing knows, SQL Prompt knows that I need to supply object owners. So if I just started typing a table name, it's not going to correct me. If I want to ignore best practices, if I want to skip past best practices, I can, right? It's not taking control away from you. You can do what you need to do to get your job done. However, it is prompting you to say, hey, you probably ought to say, add the schema. We're going to use sales, just for an example. Now, oops. If someone could just show me how to type, it would be so great. There we go. So sales, now I'm creating my own table, so I have to give it a table name. We'll call it, Tech Gig Demo. Right? Now it knows that I can add check constraints, I can add primary keys, so I'm just going to add ID. Notice the data types. It knows what I'm doing. So int. Now what if I say, oh, let's make it an identity? It knows again what I'm doing. It's very aware of the fact that everything I do is part of T-SQL, and it's done within a T-SQL context. Also notice the parentheses were prompted in the same way we saw the quote marks prompted earlier. So varchar 50 or whatever I want to do. And now I can create this table. Done. That table worked. It was accurate. Now notice any kind of typos I made, like lowercase v here, if I wanted to make that uppercase or whatever, I'll have to go back and do modifications to that table. Let's right-click, script object as alter. I said, oh, it's not, hang on, it needs to get a refresh. My bad, my bad. We refresh the suggestions because we just created an object, so that should be working. Hey, look, it's a demo, so something went wrong. We'll skip past that bit. What if we're doing other things? Let's say CNI. Create non-clustered index. It's immediately filled out everything for me. It's put all that code in. This is an example of yet another snippet that's helping me along, helping me do stuff, prompting me through the process, and it's showing me all the different things that I could do inside there using the on-file group, using ignore dupe key, drop existing, everything I need to know. Also, it's prompting me, showing me what you need is give it a name, use the on clause to a table or a view, and then put in a series of columns. It shows everything I need. It's not simply helping me type. It's helping me type accurate, correct T-SQL. This stuff, I swear, I have a very hard time. Occasionally I do consulting. Occasionally I will go, to sites and help people out. And when they don't have prompt, I actually have a hard time typing T-SQL because I am so used to having this tool walk me through everything. I mean, I know what to do, but I've gotten very much in the habit of having this tool help me because it makes things so much faster. I just kind of stop worrying about things. Let's switch back to the slides here. Now, we've gone over how to make your T-SQL writing faster, and it really does work. It's not simply a question of getting that T-SQL out the door quickly. It's a question of getting it out the door quickly, accurately, with clarity, and with good syntax so that it's working well. Now that's awesome. If that's all the tool did, it'd be amazing. But we do more. We keep things going. We've got more stuff. T-SQL is very much a language that's hard to read sometimes. There's you can type it pretty much any way you want to. You can have it all in one giant long string. You can rearrange it any way you want to. You can put commas before the columns. You can put commas after the columns. And there's debates online, long-winded debates over which of those two things is correct. It doesn't really matter. The thing is that individuals are going to make choices. Individuals want to see things a particular way. And what we want to do is have the ability to let the individuals see the code the way they want to see it, but not necessarily affect others. Or, even if it does affect others, have a mechanism for changing stuff so that it looks like the way I want to see it, not necessarily the way you want to see it. Let's take a look at how we do that, because customization is important. Right, so we'll have to scroll around and find ourselves again. Let's do this. We're going to close this query window. Oh, hang on. Do I want to save it? No, I do not. Oh, you can see my other code I'm working on right now. Let's zoom out just so I can see what's going on here. And I want to look at the Object Explorer window, and we're going to go back into AdventureWorks. And not tables. Let's take a look at programmability, and we'll look at stored procedures. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify a stored procedure here. Now this is a stored procedure built that comes along with AdventureWorks, so I'm not creating this one on the fly. So you can see the code now. Alter procedure, does all this fun stuff. It's got all the brackets on all the object names. It's got the stuff arranged. Let's see it's got the columns laid out in a straight line across the screen. So if I want to look at stuff, I've got to scroll over. And frankly, I really don't like this. So I'm just going to rearrange it so it looks like stuff that I like to look at, things that make my eye draw better. If you'll notice now, I have just, with a couple of key commands, completely changed the layout of this script. I've now ordered all the columns straight down instead of across. I now have my joins and my on clauses broken apart. The where clauses are lining up. Union all has now broken things down again the same way. All of this stuff is laid out the way I like it. This is code formatting, and you'll notice the same thing for all of the other statements. The entire statement set has been completely rewritten. Not rewritten, reformatted. Just showing me the format the way I need to see it, the way it works for me. So let's go back into here. I've got a menu choice up here, SQL Prompt, and we can take a look at our options. We'll take a look at some of the other stuff soon. Let me zoom in so you can actually see what we're talking about. And there's all kinds of behaviors, and I'm going to go over some of the choices you can make here. But first I want to go down here specifically to format styles. Now we've got a series of styles. You can create these, you can make a default style, you can import a style, and you can save a style. Now why would any of that be important? Because if you have an in-house style that you would like to enforce across your team to ensure the team does things a particular way, you can create that style and set it up. Now, what style am I talking about? Well, let's talk about the things you can do. Case statements. Now, personally, I like most of the default values. For example, reserve words, built-in functions, built-in data types are all uppercase. Global variables leave as is, although I can change them uppercase, upper camel case, lower camel case. I can make modifications to each of these things. And as I make the modifications, it will change the example code below. Let's say I want all my reserved keywords lowercase. Personally, I can't stand that, but that does reflect down here below. You can see the declare now is lowercase, whereas before it was uppercase. Now the data types over here, date time, those are still uppercase because we haven't changed it up above. We can change it here, and now you'll notice date time has changed, or we can even change it to camel case, and now you'll see date time is broken apart down here. Oops, down here. Camel case. Okay. Now let's get everything back to where it was, because otherwise I'll be a very unhappy camper. Now, schema statements. We can modify the way things are created. So create statements, definitions, closing parentheses, how you want to lay things out, indent the contents or not indent the contents. You can make all these changes. 1 second, if you'll excuse me for 1 second. Okay, let me keep going. Sorry about that. I'm working from home, so my kids are here. Zoom back out because I've lost track of where I'm at. There we go. SQL Prompt and options. Cool. Right, so we got up to schema statements, data statements. We can make a determination for how things are laid out based on the first column, subsequent columns. We can change the join conditions. We can align joins to you know, the condition, and you'll notice below it changes at each thing. We can modify the expressions. We've got choices over and over again, commas and parentheses. Heck, you know what? Let's place all the commas at the start. Click OK. Let's go back over here where we can see what's going to happen. We'll zoom out just a little bit so you can see it on the fly. I will hit my keystroke commands, and it's now placed all the commas at the front. Now, maybe you don't like that placement. Maybe you want it over here. We can make that modification too, however you want it. But here's the key point. I've now modified this so I can look at it the way I want to look at it. And I can now run this script, and it will work. Great. However, the beautiful thing is I've got choices on how this is going to work. And I don't have to let this go. I can just lay it out this way for me to look at and go, okay, now I understand what's going on with this query. I don't need to look at it anymore. Close the query. Or save it, you know, execute it so it does the alter procedure and it will put that stuff back in. But then let's say I'm another individual and I don't like things the way things have laid out. For example, I don't like those commas in front. I want my commas in the back. I go right back over here. I make that modification. And now I get to lay it out the way I like. Done. This is completely and utterly all about individual use, individual capabilities. Now, there's some other stuff in here. If we go in here and look, we actually have the ability to look at your tab history. And we can store a number of these. Oops, we need to zoom in so you can see it. We can store a number of these. We can see a number of tabs, and so if you were to shut down your system and, you know, if you accidentally close it in the middle of what you're doing, you can actually get the history of the tabs you had open and the T-SQL inside them. So when you've accidentally shut down the system, you can pull it right back up and keep going. There's no reason why not. So just keep it, you know, keep it going that way. And it, again, it's for the individuals to get their things going. Now let me also point out the behavior. Now personally, I modify the behavior. By definition, I don't believe the spacebar is selected. I think it's just enter and tab. But I like having the spacebar. I actually also like having the dot. And what that means is that each prompt, I can have it, you know, go to the next prompt as I type this thing. So if I put in comma, if I put in semicolon, it will immediately prompt me for the next statement. It will complete the statement that I'm working on, and then prompt me for the next. The main one I use, of course, is spacebar. I do use the Enter key, but I also use spacebar. But that's, again, individuals, the way you type, the way you feel, you're going to be able to come in here and make modifications to this by just changing the options. And again, it's down to the individual. Let's zoom back out and switch back over to the slide. And I know the questions are coming in, and we'll be answering those shortly. Now, the whole thing is, we've just shown how to speed up your queries. We've shown how to make the individuals function better, but we also need to talk about teams. Now, I've already mentioned that we can share formatting, right? I've already showed that to you. You've seen how that would be done. You can import, export that, save it, give it new names, share it around amongst the team, bring it in. But this is where things get really good. You can share your snippets. You can create snippets of your own and share those around within your team as well. So you can really get this stuff going. There's a lot more you can do. Let's take a look. We're going to go back into here, and we have this thing called a Snippet Manager. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see what's going on. Now you'll notice the snippets have a folder. I get to choose where that folder is. Right now it's my local folder. It's a C drive. But I can make that anything. I can make it a shared folder out on a network drive. I can make it a shared folder up on a website, Dropbox, whatever. You can put this folder where you need it to be so that your entire team has the exact same set of snippets. Now, why would this be exciting? Well, notice, take a look at the list of snippets here. So we've got alter function, alter procedure, alter table, add column, modify column, all these different ways of very quickly speeding up your code, right? Begin in block, you can put those things in. Begin transactions, just BT, right? Type BT, hit space, and off you go. You have to modify the options so space becomes your choice. Cross join, create SQL login. Now all of this stuff seems, it's like, okay, great, that's awesome, but what do you mean about like I can customize for my team? Well, what if, let's just, take an example. What if you've got, a particular, I don't know, formatting or a very particular thing you want to do on create table, that you always want to have a particular set of columns, for example, a default, modify date. Well, you go in here and you say, well, create table, and I want to edit this, and I can edit it directly, make modifications, and I can add in, say, I always want to have a modified date of a date time and put that in. I can have that be a part of the standard create table snippet, and it will automatically fill all the stuff in for me on the fly. Also, notice this little thing down here, $ cursor, $. You can pick and choose where the cursor drops as you create these statements, as you create these snippets. And so you get to do anything you want. You can edit, and you can modify this however you need to modify it. You can change the snippet keys, you can change the description, and hit save. You can create a new one, right? Give it the snippet keys, create a description, put the code in any way you need to. And then once you save all this out, it's shared across your entire team automatically. You are no longer just doing things as individuals. You're doing things within a team. Your team has got a standard. Your team has got a methodology that you're communicating across to them. So you get to share things, prompts, snippets, formatting mechanisms, all of that can be done across the team. So the efficiencies increase, because now if your team gets used to looking at a particular set of SQL code, then they will always see it the same way over and over and over again. And it's just, I just kind of can't get away from just how much it increases everyone's capabilities. Now let's see if there's anything else we've left out. Oh yeah, there are a few things. For example, I cannot stand brackets. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to remove all the square brackets from my code. Gosh, I can't stand that. I'm so glad that's gone. That makes my life so much better. Now, in some cases, let's say you use restricted characters like a space or something in your object names, that would be problematic, but we actually keep an eye out for that and avoid those so it wouldn't break. Also, let's make sure, let's make sure that we insert semicolons. Now, what do I mean? Well, hang on. We'll just do this. Now, your normal statement, SQL Server is more and more requiring a terminator, a statement terminator of semicolon. Now, it's hard to get in the habit of writing semicolons. I know. I've been struggling with it myself, but I've largely conquered it. However, let's say I haven't. I can now insert semicolons, and this will figure out all my statements, all my statement ends, and put the semicolons in the appropriate place. And so now I've got semicolons where I need to have them. Let's see what else. It can apply the casing option, so if I type things in lowercase, it will rearrange them. I can qualify object names. If I have left off, let's say address ID. Now you'll notice it picked up the A dot, but let's say I leave it off. Let's say I accidentally left that off. Where is it? Qualify object names, and it puts those back in for me on the fly. I can make sure that my code is accurate, that my code is clear. Is there any other really cool things? Summarize the script is nice. Find unused variables, find invalid objects. Script object exalters give me a hard time. Select the object in the Object Explorer. Let's see if that works. Oh, I think you have to have the Object Explorer visible. There it goes. It worked. It selected the object in the Object Explorer. Whew, I feel better now. All right. Let's switch back to the slides. So those are all the different things it can do. So the real question is what to return on investment. Now this, this is the thing is that we've done a series of tests, and what we found is that out of the box, with no practice, nobody's tried mechanisms for increasing speed. We find that SQL Prompt makes you approximately 25% faster than hand coding. We've also found that it makes you about 50% faster than IntelliSense, but let me be really clear. IntelliSense improves your accuracy, as we do. However, IntelliSense, to make it work, requires extra keystrokes. And it doesn't support all the different commands that we support. So you have to use extra keystrokes to make it do what it has to do, and that, we found, slows stuff down. Now, if you're used to it, it probably won't slow you down as much, right? I want to be clear about that. But then you also have cost savings based on the increase in your efficiency. The fact that your coding is accurate out of the gate is also going to cause increases. So there's a number of huge returns on investment that are going to come back from this. And quantifying it can be somewhat difficult, but it is faster, radically faster, and then you've got the increases in efficiency caused by the fact that you can read things the way you want to read them, as individuals. You have, code snippets that you're sharing across your team, so that the team is creating things the same way in a fast, efficient manner. All things that just speed stuff up, right? Now, these were the goals. The goals were to write faster T-SQL. I'm positive we hit that one because SQL Prompt just makes you fly. It's just so much faster. All of the prompting for the correct command structures, so that when you're typing create table, it knows where you're at and it can supply you with data types and all those other things. The backup database, it knows the command structures, the with clauses that should be occurring. All that stuff, it makes you faster. You've got standards you can create across the enterprise, so you can put in snippets so that they're one way for everyone. You can put in formatting so that it is one way for everyone. Although some of the formatting stuff, I would not recommend making it one way for everyone because, frankly, individuals tend to look at things differently. And that is another thing that we do. Our ability to reformat the code on the fly means that individuals can reformat it so that they're looking at it the way they want to very fast. You learn the keystrokes. It's Control-K, Control-Y. It makes things go. It's just hold down Control-Key and hit KY, and off it goes. It reformats fast, fast, fast. So we've got another increase in efficiency. All of these things make for a much faster, a much more maintainable, a much more accurate set of T-SQL code. It just works. It makes your teams more productive and more efficient. Now, I just want to put up my contact information again to make sure you guys have a chance. If somebody didn't get it the first time, this is my blog, my email, and my Twitter handle. Please get in touch. You can, I respond to my emails, grant@scarydba.com. I do work for Redgate. I have a Redgate email, but I see more of the email in this one than I do the others. So anyway, please, you can get in touch with me. If there are more questions after this is done, I'll be glad to answer them. By the way, I am a technical person. I'm not a salesperson, so please don't call me, contact me regarding negotiating on sales, because I won't be able to help you at all. I'm very much a tech nerd and a DBA. Now, some resources. These are available on the slide. We have a video of SQL Prompt for hand coding and IntelliSense. It's a funny video. It's myself and Steve Jones trying out, doing the tests ourselves, hand coding versus IntelliSense. We've also got a good thing on prompt setup, how to get through that. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'll leave that contact information up, but I'm going to open this up for questions. Let me get the questions thing out so I can see them. And let's take a look at what we've got. How are we doing on time? Good. All right, so the first question is, how can we manage top-level services with Linux? I don't know. Linux and SQL Server are not the same, so we're gonna skip past that one. Which version of SQL MS are you using? Great question. I am currently using myself SQL Server 2014. However, we support SQL Server 2012, SQL Server 2008 R2, SQL Server 2008, and SQL Server 2005. So you can get pretty much whatever you need. I think we might support 2000 with, well, I know we support 2000, but with some of the older versions. I'm not sure the newest version supports 2000. I'd have to double check. But frankly, please just upgrade off 2000. Don't use 2000 anymore. It's time for it to go away. Let's see. We've got, hi. To get the SSF functionality only IntelliSense functions, do we really need to install Redgate add-in? Yes. There is a snippets tool within, it's not called snippets, I forget what it's called. There is a snippets tool within SQL Server that you can set up your own stuff, but all it does is it has a window that you'll have to put up on the side, and you can drag and drop things into your window. You cannot type and have it automatically pick up something like SSF and automatically do all the coding for you. It will not happen. It does not work. You want that type of functionality, that type of speed and efficiency, yeah, you've got to go third-party tool. That's what we're here for. Let's see. That was already said. What is the advantage of T-SQL over Oracle SQL? Well, that's a question. It's a totally different discussion point, right? T-SQL is SQL Server. Oracle is Oracle. Two totally different things. We kind of can't cross over between the two in a meaningful fashion and have that discussion. Oracle's awesome. However, T-SQL code efficiency is just a completely different discussion, so we're going to keep going. Can you give me tips on query performance? And another one, tips to improve query performance. Yes, I can give you a number of tips to improve query performance. I wrote a book on it. It's called SQL Server Query Performance Tuning. It's available from Apress. It's on Amazon and and all kinds of other places. And we're not going to get into query performance tuning today, because that's a completely different discussion. All right, so how to implement SQL Prompt in SQL Server 2012. Same way you would implement it anywhere else. It works great in 2012. It's very aware of the 2012 command structures, the command language. It knows the newer commands from SQL Server 2012, and it works well with them. And so it just functions. So all you have to do is install it inside of your SQL Server Management Studio, and you are good to go. So that was an easy one. Keep those questions coming, guys. Is there any way to make a relationship in between two tables belonging to two different databases? You know what? I don't know. I don't think so, but you know what? Let's give it a shot. I'm willing to try. If you are, let's go, oops. Let's go to here. Come back. All right. Hang on, let me get the questions back out of my way so I can see. We're going to try this on the fly. If it doesn't work, my apologies and my fault. Oops. but I'm not sure. So, oops. There we go. I'm going to try SSF. That's the way I started. Let's try movie management dot DVO dot agent. Haha. Okay. Join address. Notice, worth pointing out here, since we're doing this demo on the fly and you guys are getting to see new stuff as we go, notice it recognized that I typed in movie management.dvo.agents, which allows me to do a cross-database query. It did as A. It prompted it. It put in the alias for me, which is a choice that you get to make in the options. Then I did join to person address. It recognized that A was already used, so it put in A2. Now I could modify that if I want to, or I can just let it go. I'm going to, in this case, because we're doing demos, I'm going to let it go. But you'll notice now A dot, we'll call it agent ID, equals A2 dot address ID. Now, obviously, these are not actual joins, but can it do it? Yes, it can. I wasn't 100% sure if that was going to work right, but it does. Now, it will prompt you if those two databases and the two tables that we're referencing in those two databases, if they both have the same column name and the same data type, then it will prompt that in the on clause. But in this case, what we're joining is two completely separate table, column names, so it's not going to prompt that. However, it won't do a foreign key prompt because you can't have a foreign key relationship between two tables. So that just because that will not work, we can't prompt that, but we can prompt on column name and data type. So hopefully that answered your question there. Cool. Is it possible to restrict the developer to use SQL Prompt settings and not create any scripts of their own? Not really. This is we are working within Management Studio, and so the capabilities of Management Studio are something that we have to function within. We cannot, we can't show you limit functionality that way. Now, certainly possible that we could, but honestly, I would not want to. What if a service pack comes out and we don't have the code coverage for that service pack yet? You would not want to have, if there was a new T-SQL statement introduced, you would not want to have that limited. For the week or two it might take us to catch up. And let me tell you, it doesn't take much more than that, if that, because frequently we get them before they're out. No, I wouldn't want to see that. I mean, could we do it? Yeah, we could. We don't currently. Anyway, which scenario do I have to choose, clustered index and non-clustered index? Another query tuning question. Well, I'll answer this one really, really fast. A clustered index is the table. The clustered index is your direct path to the data. So the clustered index, the best use of your clustered index, is in the most common path to the data. Okay? So whatever is most frequently used, if it's your primary key, great. That's a very good choice. But it could be a foreign key. That could be your most frequently used path to the data. That might be a better choice for the cluster. We're not going to get into that whole discussion because that will keep you going for a very, very long time. All right. How to restore a higher version of SQL Server database backup file onto a lower version. Is it possible? No, it's not possible. You can't do that. You have to once the NDF files are converted to a higher version of SQL Server, they will not restore to a lower version of SQL Server. The only way you can do that is to export all the objects and data and import all the objects and data, and that's also not a SQL Prompt question. Alrighty then. I don't see any other questions. There are still quite a few people here. If anybody's got a question we didn't answer, now is the time to get it in there. Start typing. See if there's anything else we can do. How to keep data in an encrypted format inside of SQL Server. You can't. You really can't. There is something. There are encryption capabilities within T. You can make T-SQL statements encrypted, but there is It is so trivially simple to unencrypt them. It's not true encryption. Now you can encrypt your database, but you cannot. You just cannot encrypt the other stuff. Again, not a prompt question. Can you share reference? Can you share reference material for SQL Server? I'm not sure what you mean. The reference material that we do have for prompt is here, and the slides are going to be available from redgate.com, and I suspect from here, but it's SQL Prompt versus hand coding and IntelliSense is a video, and prompt setup is a document. So those are the two things there. As far as SQL Server goes, performance tuning, all that stuff, I strongly recommend my book, SQL Server Performance Tuning. Can you please tell the version of SQL Server you're using now? Yes, I can. I am using right now SQL Server 2014, but this does work with 2012, 2008 R2, 2008, 2005. So pretty much all of them. I think it might work with 2000, but I'm not sure. And if it doesn't, you shouldn't be using 2000 anyway. It's time to upgrade. All right, and so that's the last question from there. So we've still got a couple of minutes left. You don't look scary. Why is my name the Scary DBA? Well, that's because you've never asked me for SA privileges to my production server. You ask me for SA privileges to my production server, I get very scary very quickly. So you would know how I got my name then. I'm not scary. I try to be very, very helpful, which is why I give out my email. So I want to make sure you guys, if you do need to get in touch, please do, because I just, if there's more questions, a lot of times people don't want to have their stuff read out over the name, even though I'm not sending anyone's name or exposing you guys. I understand that you may want follow-ups later. So please, get in touch. I'll do my best to answer questions after the fact. So any other questions? We've still got a couple more minutes. Well, it looks like people have run out of questions. Can you tell me something about fragmentation? Yes, it's not all that of a good thing, but it's also not all that of a bad thing. Fragmentation is when you do deletes and you now have holes, or you do an insert into an index or a clustered index, and the insert, there's no more room on the page for the data that you're adding, so it has to do a split, meaning it takes this page, splits it in half, and then adds your data. But that splitting in half causes fragmentation. It means there's half the data in 2 pages that was in 1 page. And so what it means is when you're doing scans, it's reading more pages. And the more pages it reads, the more memory it uses, the slower it is. And so you want to reduce that, and that's fragmentation. Defragmenting means defragmenting the indexes, and that's pretty much it. There's also file fragmentation, but that's a completely different thing, so we're not going to dig that hole right now. The difference between DBO and DB owner. Well, DB owner is a role, and DBO is effectively a schema. That's the main differences between them. DB owner is a set of security settings, and DBO is a schema, and it can have security settings associated, but it's different. Can I convert SQL query to link query? Yeah, I don't know. And how effective are SQL prompt in inner SQL statements? Oh, you mean like, sure. We've got 4 minutes. Let's try doing a quick demo on that. Oops, 1 second. All right, so SSF, always. SSF, address, join, address type, on. Oop, why is it? Oh, that's not hang on. Join. We should do address type. Oh, there's a, hang on. Join, we'll do person. No. Let's just do business entity address. There we go. On there. Sorry about that. Took too long. So how does it handle these? Let's give it as my demo. Okay, so what we've now got is effectively, it works with CTEs and anything else. My demo, you'll notice it's already reading it, it knows what it is, and yeah, it completely works with it, it understands everything. So it'll keep going from there. It absolutely works. It understands T-SQL syntax, so it does what you're asking for, exactly the way you're asking for it. And it does understand common table expressions and all the rest. Can I link SQL? Describe SQL Server execution plans. Again, I've got a book on that. That one's a free download from redgate.com, so go for it. SQL Server execution plans just show you what the choices the optimizer made. And so it's a great way to tune queries and understand what's going on inside of the SQL engine. Are these prompts and snippets available with PL SQL? I don't know. Not from this specific tool that I showed you today, but if there are other PL SQL tools, yeah. And what's the purpose to rebuild index? Will it automatically rebuild it from applications? No, rebuild index is a way to defragment your indexes, and it does not automatically occur. It's something you have to do. That's so funny. There's so many query tuning questions coming in. Clearly, you guys ought to have me come back and do a query tuning session. We'll just talk query tuning for a day. Can we create views for entity framework through SQL Prompt? For entity framework. Views, can you create T-SQL views? Yes. Can you take control of framework from prompt? No. No. But you can create views from this, and then the views can be used by entity framework. Yeah, absolutely. It's just creating T-SQL objects, and any way T-SQL objects work, they still continue to work the same way. All right, guys, it looks like we've gone through all the questions, and we've gone through all the time. So I think I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Grant.
Is that right?
Yeah. Thank you, Grant. Thanks for the insightful presentation. It was indeed a great session, yes. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this webinar will be available on techgeek.com shortly. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.